In this video, I'll be talking about awakening passion, basically, how attraction, desire, and sexual energy can heal and transform your body and mind. I'm Ben Ufana. Today, I'm recording from a farmhouse in upstate New York. I'm completing another article. It has so much intricate detail in places that I can't possibly remember everything that I'd like to include here. So I will be referring back to my notes here and there. And for that matter, I encourage you to look for the link below where you can click on the link to read the more detailed article so you could see anything that I may have left out. Desire has been long perceived as a serpentine force. According to centuries of Christian doctrine, especially if you look at some of the early church founders or other influential members, going back to the very early history in the Middle Ages, even up until the beginning of the previous century, and still those who adhere to the more fundamentalist interpretations of Christianity is often attributed to the devil. And it was common in times past for the more fanatical members of some Christian sects to flagellate themselves. If you don't know what that means, it's like these individuals would take objects like a whip and they would be lashing themselves with it. And while there are Tantra lineages among the Buddhist and Hindu traditions, there are also sects or lineages that reject what is considered to be worldly. These traditions tend to view desire, passion, sexuality as something lesser, something to be transcended in order to evolve to a higher plane. And they believe that true spiritual growth requires the renunciation of worldly desires and pleasures, seeing them as distractions from one's path to enlightenment. To this day, following one's desires can have even deadly consequences in parts of the Middle East, Africa, India, Pakistan, where honor killings are still prevalent. Couples who act on their desires without the approval of their families, and especially young women perceived to have dishonored their families, are often the victims of these brutal practices. And there's a form of narcissism that has long been prevalent in India, where many parents fail to recognize their own children as separate and distinct entities with their own needs, wants, and desires. And this is clearly evident in the way some parents will decide for their children, you're going to be an engineer, you're going to go and study medicine. And as I've seen with numerous friends, those who acquiesce to the demands of their parents often do so at a great cost to their own well-being. The narcissism that I speak of is also clearly evident in the tradition of arranged marriages in which the parents choose a spouse for their own children. From the parent standpoint, it's like, well, I don't care that you're in love with that person, want to be with them. You're going to marry the person that I tell you that you're going to be with. In some instances, these arranged marriages do work out well. I know from the conversations that I've had with so many friends that many people end up looking outside of their marriages to meet their need. And also the divorce rate in India has been skyrocketing for quite some time. Those marriages where an individual chooses their partner out of love are still referred to in this day as love marriages. And while spending time in India, I often saw articles and heard news reports about parents killing their adult children and, in some instances, their spouses for marrying without their approval. But thankfully, these abuses are becoming far less common as more Indians are moving into the modern age. Most of us now are living in a society at a time in history where there's a greater emphasis on the avoidance of pain. And this pain could mean facing the unpleasant realities of our lives or issues that we just rather not be dealing with. More than ever, our society now emphasizes the pursuit of pleasure, leading many to become self absorbed and focused on instant gratification. For many, it's still difficult to get in touch with our true desires. And those of us who grew up with religious indoctrination may have internalized the messages that have us believing that our desires are sinful, that leave us with a pervasive sense of guilt and shame. And even to this day, many of us have been taught to deny the flesh, to deny our basic human needs, to deny ourselves of pleasure. We shut down these aspects of ourselves often due to a sense of unworthiness or because we fail to understand and accept some of our most basic needs. Additionally, many of us have never been taught how to work effectively with our emotional responses, and we carry the traumatic wounds of our childhood and adolescence along with other deeply wounding experiences, and then we internalize the stresses of daily life. We end up numbing ourselves by shutting down emotionally. In doing so, we are to varying degrees shutting down the parts of ourselves through which we feel desire and experience pleasure. It's important to understand that both desire and sexual energy are essential for our personal growth, our well being, and the formation of meaningful relationships. Desire is a powerful force that drives our actions, and it shapes our decisions and influences the paths we choose in life. Desire is often misunderstood and shrouded in misconceptions, and many people fear that embracing their desires is inherently selfish or morally corrupt. Others worry that acknowledging their desires will make them vulnerable to rejection or the judgments of others. Sexual energy, despite being a natural and vital part of our human experience, often carries a stigma rooted in familial, cultural, and religious contexts that view sexuality as something to be hidden or controlled. Over the centuries, these perspectives have led to shame and sexual repression. Consequently, many of us have developed unhealthy relationships with our own bodies and sexuality. Shame and guilt are powerful emotions that can severely hinder the expression of both desire and sexuality. And these feelings often originate from internalized familial, religious, and cultural messages that portray certain desires and sexual expression as wrong or sinful. Shame can also cause us to suppress our desires and sexual feelings, contributing to emotional distress and a sense of unworthiness. Guilt can create a conflict between our natural inclinations and the moral and ethical standards that we've internalized. And this is why it's so important for us to recognize the origins of the shame and guilt inducing messages, to heal the wounds resulting from the ensuing damage, and to work towards cultivating compassion and acceptance for ourselves. Healing and freeing ourselves from these influences allows us to live in accordance with our own authentic needs, convictions, embracing both our desires and our sexuality. Desire plays a crucial role in so many aspects of our lives, from the foods we choose to eat, where we decide to live, the work we do, the passions we pursue, the people we spend time with, and who we partner with romantically. However, our desires can become corrupted. The pain we internalize from past trauma, suppressed emotions, can cause us to gravitate towards people and situations that reinforce our emotional wounding, causing us to consume foods and substances that are harmful to our bodies, or get ourselves entangled in all kinds of toxic, dysfunctional dynamics or situations. And as we take the steps necessary to facilitate our healing, a process of transformation takes place. And we begin to desire or gravitate towards and choose people and situations and foods and living spaces that are healthier for us. Desire also acts as a propulsion mechanism that moves us towards that which we long for. It ignites our inner drive, pushing us to take action and to make progress. And beyond just propelling us forward, desire helps us to draw to us that which we yearn for. It's as if the energy of desire creates a magnetic field, attracting to us opportunities, people, and experiences that align with our deepest longings. And this dual function of desire, both as a force that propels us forward and as a magnet that attracts, is essential in the journey of manifesting our dreams and aspirations. Largely in response to the traumas of my childhood and adolescence, I had shut down emotionally and I was numb to my emotions, my physical body, and not fully inhabiting the later. But starting in my mid 20s, I went through a series of disastrous relationships where I found myself forming attachments to or getting entangled with women who were either disinterested, unavailable, and in some cases, quite abusive. And all that was evoking enormous pain. And yet somehow I had an intuitive sense to dive into the depth of all those excruciatingly painful emotions and breathe very softly and very deeply. And sometimes I would be breathing into the depths of these emotions for hours on end. But at a certain point, I could feel all that pain breaking open and coming out of my body in waves. And underneath, I would experience these powerful emanations of warmth beginning to emanate from within. As I learned to work effectively with my emotions and also incorporate the most effective therapeutic interventions, such as deep tissue body work, working with gifted healers, going on the vision quest, which is a traditional Native American practice that involves going out to fast for 4 days and nights alone in the mountains with no food or water. I experienced a profound transformation. I could feel the unhealthy attachments dissolving, and that made it easier for me to let go when relationships were not working. I was going through so many changes during this time, developing my own system of meditation practices, gradually feeling more embodied, and my emotional range was opening up, and the quality of my relationships was improving. And yet, there were still instances in which I'd be spending time with the woman I was attracted to and feeling an incredibly strong desire to be with her. But maybe she wasn't feeling the same way I was, and for whatever reason, was not receptive. And yes, that did hurt at times. And I felt rejected. But usually it just meant that it was time for me to let go and move on. There are also many instances, though, where I was able to accept this situation for what it was, and we remained platonic friends. And yet, there are other instances in which I'd be feeling this intense desire. And I started noticing that the intensity of the desire, the passion, that I was feeling was having an effect on the woman that I was spending time with. There are times when the walls would start coming down and the woman that I was spending time with would start opening up to me, becoming more receptive. One evening years back, a girlfriend, her body leaning or laying onto mine, was saying to me, "You make me lose control." Apparently, allowing myself to fully experience my own desires in some instances would draw women closer by awakening and amplifying their own desires. Over the years, I've worked with people of so many different nationalities, religious backgrounds, political affiliations, gay, lesbian, transgender individuals. And I do the best I can to remain open, to, in a sense, step into their world. I need to gain a sense of who they are to understand this individual I'm working with better. I have also worked with a number of women who were involved in sex work, including prostitutes and strippers. And I feel for these women because I recognize how incredibly damaging sex work can be. And I've also helped some women to get out of sex work and get their lives on track. I would occasionally run into a woman when I lived in New Mexico who made it obviously clear that she was very much attracted to me. And at times I'd run into her, it often felt like she was projecting this field around me. And although I felt concerned for her and about her well being, it also creeped me out. And there was this feeling on my part of just get away from me. And not too long afterwards, I was visiting a composer friend in Frankfurt, Germany. And while we were out one night, he pointed out to me this multi story office building that was being used as a house of prostitution. I'm like this roving sociologist, anthropologist, and being curious, I said to my friend, let's check it out. We started off going all the way up to the fifth floor, and walking through the building. And there were all these sex workers, and they each had their own office suite. And they would often be standing in the doorway. So going from the fifth floor down to the fourth, and then made it to the third floor. And we all have our own type. There's certain types of facial features and body type that we find attractive. So we're on the third floor, and there are these two that were just stunningly beautiful. And I looked back, and one of the two looked at me. And as she did so, I could feel her just enveloping me in her presence. I didn't walk at that point. I ran to the nearest exit, ran down a few flights of stairs, ran out the building. And even later that night, as I went back to my friend's guest house and lay down to go to sleep, I could still feel her presence around me, and it didn't feel comfortable. And the reason I'm mentioning these two instances is they are some of the best examples of the importance for us to be especially mindful of other people's boundaries. Maybe you find yourself feeling this burning desire and you're wanting so much to be with someone, and yet the feelings are not reciprocal. If you continue to project your desire, your feelings of attraction and sexual arousal, you're being incredibly invasive and creepy. It is normal to feel attracted to others and to want to test the waters to see if the feelings are reciprocal. But sensitivity is critically important in these instances. When you're able to tune in to other individuals, you can sense if they are receptive. You can test the waters a bit. But if you sense in any way that they are feeling uncomfortable, then stop. Recognize their boundary. Turn the volume of the feelings down. If not, turn it off completely. Instead of projecting your presence, trying to envelop that person, just withdraw your energy field back to yourself. Years ago, when I was training in neuro-linguistic programming, some of the practitioners who utilize NLP for therapeutic purposes would inquire themselves, is this intervention ecological? We need to be equally mindful in our interactions with others, and even more so when it comes to being intimate with another individual. Consider, for instance, if this individual is in an emotionally vulnerable space resulting from having gone through some kind of traumatic experience or is struggling with some other mental health issues. You might also ask yourself, how would be becoming intimate impact them? Would it have an adverse effect on them emotionally? A person who catches your attention, for instance, may already be in a relationship, possibly going through a difficult time with their partner. And for you, it's important to consider the impact that it would have on their relationship and their life overall. For decades now, I've been doing intensive meditation and Qigong practice, and I get deep tissue body work and make use of other therapeutic interventions whenever the opportunity presents itself. And I've gone through so many vision quests now, having trained with the traditional Native American doctor, a medicine man. I work as a conduit, allowing this extraordinarily powerful presence to work through me to facilitate healing within the bodies and minds of others. And everything I've mentioned here gives me an added advantage, enabling me to tap into much greater power. And a big part of my practice is about becoming more fully embodied. The power that flows through me, it can repel those who do not resonate with me. And the people who are not willing to face the issues that need to be dealt with or don't want to go there, don't want to feel their own emotions, they can at times feel intimidated by me. Conversely, those who resonate with me are more growth oriented are more likely to be drawn to me and the healing presence that works through me. Now, if I'm feeling a strong desire for a woman I'm spending time with, presence and the power working through me is going to amplify my own desires, which can in turn amplify the desires of the woman that I'm spending time with. In some ways, it's akin to pouring gasoline onto a fire. Repressed passions, desires, unmet sexual needs often come alive, and it also enhances her sexual experience, often leading to multiple orgasms. It definitely intensifies the experience, allowing us to connect on a deeper and more intimate level. Much of the transformation I've experienced has taken place as a result of having learned to work effectively with my own emotions. And this is why I place so much emphasis on teaching others to work with their own emotional responses. And it's through our emotions that we're able to get in touch with and awaken our desires and passions. Emotions are powerful messengers, revealing the hidden depths of our inner world. They act as a bridge between our conscious and subconscious minds, bringing to light the feelings and the urges that often lie dormant within us. Joy, sadness, anger, love, and fear, each emotion carries with it a unique energy that can fuel our passions and drive us towards our desires. By embracing these emotions, we can uncover what truly matters to us, what excites us, and what we long for. Emotions also serve as a guide, helping us to navigate our personal and professional lives. They provide valuable insights into our needs and boundaries and aspirations. It's also through our emotions that we're able to form attachments to one another. Our ability to feel our emotions increases our capacity for empathy, allowing us to sense the needs and considerations of others and deeply understand them. Emotional intimacy facilitates trust. It deepens relationships and enhances our ability to collaborate with and support one another. Conversely, when people shut down or numb themselves to their emotions, it creates a flatness, and that can make it harder for us to connect with them. There's a lack of attunement, and that can feel as though we're relating to a piece of cardboard. Feelings of desire and sexual energy have a way of healing and awakening our body and mind. And having trained for years with a Chinese master in systems rooted in Taoism and being exposed to practices from the Hindu Vedic tradition, I've been able to intuitively improvise and develop my own practices. And I'll share a few examples that you can incorporate should you choose to do so. If I'm spending time with a woman with whom I resonate, and there's an obvious attraction and sexual energy, and I'm getting a clear sense that she's receptive, I'll bring my awareness to where I'm feeling the desire and sexual energy within my body. And I'll fully immerse my awareness in these feelings and sensations within my body while breathing softly and deeply, which will then amplify them. As I feel the desire and sexual energy expand within my body, I'll also feel myself extending my presence, desire, and sexual energy throughout my body. I'll also feel myself embodying the desire, the feelings of attraction, and sexual arousal as I speak and look into her eyes. Again, respect for boundaries is critically important here. I will completely shut it down in an instance if I sense the woman I'm spending time with is uncomfortable in any way. I do at times find other opportunities to practice as well. In New York City, some, obviously not all, women will at times move about the city, for instance, being on the subway, wearing clothing that is incredibly revealing. In other words, showing a lot of skin. And I could hardly miss it, being that it's right in my face. In some ways, I feel it's given a very mixed message. It's like, look at me, I want to be noticed. Oh no, don't look at me. And on the other hand, oh, I only want certain men to notice me. Being a heterosexual male, it does stir up sexual energy while eliciting feelings of attraction. So when that happens, my thinking is, well, you're going to stir that up in me. So therefore, I'm going to go ahead and work with it. I just immerse my awareness in sexual energy wherever I feel it in my body, those feelings of desire or attraction. And I'll breathe softly and deeply from the depths of those feelings, sensations, and sexual energy that I'm experiencing. If I sense an openness and willingness to engage on the part of the woman, say if she happens to be looking in my direction, I can be playful and flirtatious, but if not, I'll contain my energy and emotion so as to be respectful of boundaries. Anyway, if you like what I've had to share today, look below, click like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Also, look below for the link to click on so that you could read the more in-depth article for any crucial details I may have left out. And thank you for listening.